Hello, I'm Odie Bakshis, Pro Formula Drift driver, also president of Feal Suspension. Today we're going to talk about our brand new product called FABS. FABS stands for Feal Adjustable Bump Stop. This is an adjustable cup that threads onto your existing Feal coilover, and it works with the progressive bump stop that also is included in the kit. As a suspension company, we've been tuning with bump stops for many years, and we enjoy the results. But it gets kind of tiresome to remove the bump stop from the coilover, stack a longer bump stop, shorter bump stop, or put spacers on top of the bump stop. It just takes a long time. So what we designed is an adjustable bump stop that permanently stays mounted on your coilover and allows you to adjust the bump stop engagement effortlessly. There's up to 40 millimeters of adjustability built into this system. The FABS kit is a great tuning tool for your race car. You could adjust the bump stop engagement on every single corner independent of each other. So if you're having trouble turning into one corner or you need a little bit less weight transfer into another one, you can easily dial that in by utilizing the bump stop and when it engages into it. The FABS kit is not only a great tuning tool for your race car, it works wonders on a street car that's highly modified. Say you have aftermarket uprights or really aggressive wheels and you don't want the wheel or tire bashing or rubbing your bodywork, well, you could dial that in by adjusting the FABS kit to slow down the compression stroke right before rubbing occurs or some sort of chassis interference. Instead of putting an obnoxious spring rate on your car and just making it super uncomfortable to drive, we could actually now run the proper spring rate, make the car comfortable, yet progressively slow down the compression stroke before it causes damage to a car that has very aggressive wheel fitment by utilizing the FABS kit. So there's two ways to adjust the FABS kit. One way is to remove the spring completely off the shock and set the adjustable bump stop to where you think is going to work well, and then double check for interference by cycling the suspension with the wheel installed without the spring on the shock. So on this vehicle, we already set the ride height that we like, we set the suspension droop that we're pleased with. Now we simply want to make sure that the bump stop works before the tire takes anything out. So you take an Allen wrench and you loosen up the set screw that locks in the adjustable bump stop. And we're gonna take this bump stop and move it up 15 millimeters so the suspension starts to engage the bump stop 15 millimeters sooner. And we use this ruler and we simply spin it in the direction that you want it to go up. So up is that way, and we'll go ahead and run this thing up, and we'll use the ruler on the side, which makes things a lot easier, and run it up to about 15 millimeters. Right there. We'll go ahead and lock this thing down. We'll throw a wheel on it and we'll cycle it and make sure that the suspension is starting to come to a stop before we're taking out any of the wiring that's under here or the fender itself. All right, so what I did here is after I adjusted the FABS kit, I put the wheel back on, left the spring off the shock, and started adjusting the suspension until it's compressing. And I got to the point where it's starting to lift the vehicle a little bit, and we have barely any clearance here, which is exactly what I'm shooting for. So it's engaging the bump stop and the wheel is still able to spin freely. It's not rubbing anything, and we have a little bit of gap still left. And honestly, if you hit a big enough bump, there's a little bit of bump stop still left to absorb that energy. The second method of adjusting the FABS kit is simply trial and error. This is why we designed this kit to be easily adjustable. You can take one lap, come into the pits, remove the wheel, loosen the set screw, set a different height on the FABS kit, and go right back out and measure your results. So we installed the FABS kit, Feal adjustable bump stops, on the front and on the rear of this thing, and just driving this through the canyon feels exactly the way it should. The bump stop's not in the way, it's not prematurely engaging. The car is just wonderful and comfortable to drive. When you hit a big enough bump, that's when the bump stop progressively starts to slow down the suspension movement and avoids the tires from rubbing, exactly how we set it up back at the shop. So it's doing its job perfectly fine, and this thing's just fun to drive.